they had an oil pressurized system in the engine, but it only pressurized the main bearings and the rockers. The actual conrods had scoops on the bottom, which scooped up the oil on every revolution. So the theory was that often what happened, if you drove them uphill, you would starve the front two cylinders of oil and lose your pressure. And this is a 3/4 ton Dodge. As I say, the weight limit on these, they were issued as 3/4 ton. There's another one coming around now, but they could actually carry double that weight on the road. So they were designed, the weight was 3/4 ton off-road, 1.5 tons on the road. Again, the Dodges were made in all sorts of types. I think their use. This one's has a winch on the front. 1 in 4 of all American Army vehicles, of regular wheeled vehicles, were designed to have a winch on the front, mainly for self-recovery. Now, Mr. Lamb attends our rally quite regularly with his Humber. Now, the story, if I recall, I get it right, these were released after World War II, and the BBC at the time weren't doing any outside broadcasts, so they looked for a suitable vehicle to use for that use, and they purchased several, in fact half a dozen of these vehicles. They altered the bodywork slightly on the back because they were originally a staff car, so they could carry their radio equipment in. So this is the first outside broadcast vehicles that the BBC used, and they converted the engine. They threw out the old Humber engine and put in a Perkins. You see the Perkins badge on the front. Now, the diddy little vehicle going around, based on the Austin 7. Now, you never see a military version of Austin 7, but here it is. The 2 rifles on the back. This is unique, and is featured in lots of magazines. This is owned by Mr. Shepherd from Cheltenham. It's extremely rare. There's no other word for it. I think there is possibly one other in the country. As I say, it's based on the Austin 7, and I believe it's the Mulliner bodywork on this vehicle, just a 2-seater. They did do a radio version of this as well, but again, that's as rare as hen's teeth. Now then, we have the ubiquitous Jeeps. This one, local one, owned and trimmed by Graham Burlow from Newent, and you can see all the badges on there. He's been here regularly. 650,000 of these Jeeps were made during World War II until the end of hostilities, and after that they were released. Well, the army kept on holding on to them for a long, long time after that, until the Austin Champs arrived. Again, another Jeep. Every Jeep is different. They have something different about them. Some have the shovels on the side. This one has a luggage rack on the back because there's not much room inside to put anything. So they made up these racks in the field and bolted them to the back so they could carry extra goods inside. They're actually a 4-seater with a construction, and the cross member, that is a Willis. World War II again. This is a 969 Diamond T. This is basically recovery vehicle, as you can see. The 2 booms joined together as they are could lift a combined weight of 5 tons, but they would actually swing at 90 degrees to the side, so they could be used as a mobile workshop for lifting, and then each boom would lift 2.5 tons. Again, versatile again. Now, this is a pretty little vehicle, an earlier version of the Dodge weapons carrier, owned and driven by Dan Brown. Now, this is the forerunner of the Dodges you saw go around earlier. Again, not much room in the back, but it was still rated at 3/4 of a ton. Dodge Carryall. This is the same, a different version is the one we just saw go round. This one was for staff car, and they also did it in good condition. You're looking at round about between, I won't be too optimistic. A good Jeep is 25,000 any day of the week, £25,000. So that's a big lift from £25 when they were released. So a sound investment. A Bowden now, this is quite a late British Army vehicle. They didn't seem to be all that popular. They were mechanically faulted and they made various versions of it. This is a communications body on this one. Actually, he's probably using it for sleeping in, so all are now in private hands. A lot of them are used commercially in woodlands now, because they're very handy, quite versatile vehicle for off-roading. Again, a Chevrolet, this one fitted with the winch on the front, 1.5 ton Chevrolet. This is an early Chevrolet, 1941. It has civilian instruments inside, so when they took over production to get the vehicle numbers up, they took commercial vehicles in regular use and converted them for army use, and they modified them all for service, put all their own instruments into them. Pretty little Land Rover now, Series 1. Again, since Land Rover ceased production, these are shot through the roof in value. Just a regular Land Rover, and it's very nice condition. I must credit the owner with that. Since they stopped making Land Rovers, they become very, very valuable. Now this is another version of the Land Rover, the 101 forward control. You can see it looks very square, and the reason behind that is they were designed to take up the minimum space as they were air portable. They could be loaded into aircraft and then dropped out by parachute. It's quite exciting, that, I should imagine, without the driver of course. But the 101 was originally fitted with a V8, quite a powerful little vehicle, and high ground clearance on these, and made it very versatile again. A lot of them ended up being exported abroad. A lot of them ended up, in fact, in the Middle East. And now they become very collectible because they're just diminishing in numbers all the time. A little Hillman Tilly, again finished with the RAF colours. He comes along every year with this one, beautiful little vehicle. These were just used on bases. They never saw any frontline action. They were just used for general dodging around the base. They were just, well, like a powered wheelbarrow, really, used for all sorts of things. In fact, my father on the farm bought one of these as his first vehicle after World War II, and he used to take his pigs to market in them. I said we didn't think we had a Dodge command car, but lo and behold, here is one. These were used for officers, and they had no carrying capacity, so these were the higher echelon of the troops. Again, with a radio fitted, you've got a radio table and a map table in the back. These were exclusive use for officers. General Patton had one in World War II as well as the Jeep. Oh, there we have something a little different here. You got the Seabees coming in. Owned and trimmed by Emma James from Evesham. I don't know quite what she's got in the trailer. We got a dead body on the front, or a casualty, I should say. Yeah, and two riders in the rear. But again, this trailer is interesting because they were specifically designed to go behind a Jeep. And there's no tailgate in the Jeep trailer because they were designed that if they went through water, deep water, they would actually float. So they were sort of semi-amphibious trailers. Very clever design, because if you can imagine in World War II they had to combat all sorts of deep streams and everything as they went up through Europe, and they were designed to float. And indeed you can, with a tarpaulin around them for safety, get them in the river and paddle around. Now this is an Auto Union, it's a Munger. Now these were used not by the British Armed Forces at all, they're used by NATO, and the Dutch and the Belgian army used loads of these, and the Germans of course, made by Auto Union. They're two-stroke, you can see it smoking a little as it goes round. And when they came into the UK, they were frowned upon because they couldn't get type approval. But I think they finally came over that, and they could now register them. But at first they couldn't get them legally to use on the road. Two Jeeps coming around now. As I say, every Jeep's different. Here you see it's got a rifle holder on the side. And this is an early one with the Willis stamped in the back. Willis started making them, and then they couldn't keep up with the demand, so Ford came in and took over joint manufacturing, and then, as I say, between them both they made 650,000. After World War II, Hotchkiss in France took over the license and continued making them. A lightweight Land Rover there, and the same thing applies to the previous 101 that went round. This one is square-sided, again to take up minimum space, so that could be packed in aircraft and dropped by parachute if necessary. Now a long-range Land Rover now. I missed the front, and here is the classic desert-coloured long-range SAS Land Rover with all the gear on it. These are uprated for long-range use in the desert. They were used in the Middle East, in the Aden, and the idea, you say, well, why the pink colour? But apparently, it's sunset and sunrise. This pink was the best camouflage colour they could get because it totally blended in with the horizon and the background. So that's why they're pink, and so perhaps now you know why. It has the sand rack on the side, the rails, the holes punched in, so if they got stuck in sand they could take them off. Now, these were used right up until present times in Afghanistan. This one's finished in the Afghan colours with all the goodies on it, machine guns and everything. An Alvis vehicle this time, post-war. This is Alvis Southern. It is an amphibious vehicle driven by 6 wheels. It propels itself in the water by the wheels turning. Now this is a recovery version. You can see the high up in the back, so it can be used for recovery. The sides fold down, and then it can be used for loading as well. Years ago, when the rally was held in Upton-upon-Severn, we had one of these come halfway across the river and had to get out hurriedly because it was taking on water. It's central steering on this vehicle, which makes... Now, this is a model version almost of the Hellcat that came round earlier. This is a British vehicle. It's an Abbott. Turbocharged Rolls-Royce engine. Again, a very fast, lightweight vehicle with an open-top turret. Basically, like the Hellcat, a mobile gun. The British Army had loads of these in the 60s and 70s. And in fact, the first one came on the British Army display to much marvel our original showground. I can't speak over that noise. It's very impressive, the noise. The gun on it is 155 howitzer, I believe. It could be angled up and shoot long distance. It's got a very high raised barrel. Now Dave, going around here now with his Norton sidecar, Norton combination. Again an unusual vehicle. There weren't many of these. But if you look underneath, see the drive going to the outside wheel, the sidecar wheel. As I was going to say, when the British Army sold these off, they cut off the drive shafts because they were illegal and they were frightened of a lot of people having accidents with them going in a straight line, or there's no sort of differential. Possibly. This is the United States Army, a Hellcat. Not a tank, a self-propelled gun. It's not totally enclosed, as you can see with the crew sitting on the top. If that was in action, they'd all be down inside. But this Hellcat was the first disarmament vehicle of World War II, at a top speed of 55 miles an hour, which is it was much sought after as a prize vehicle, but it's very likely taking a test those who want to drive a tank. Because to drive a tank, a track vehicle, you have to have an H registered license. So a lot of companies are offering to take your test in a suitable vehicle like this. Now, this is one I don't know an awful lot about. I should do. It's French. It's a Simca, I believe. This is a high-powered sort of NATO-type vehicle used in the 70s and 80s. It's fully armoured, but a wheel version, no tracks, just armour. Obviously, again, very nimble and agile, very streamlined looking, as you can see. And the sides are slanted, and the reason being for that is if it hits a mine, the blast is deflected up the side rather than being captivated underneath, causing basically a little less damage. Next into the arena is the infamous half-track of World War II. These are American. This one is quite a local one, comes from Cheltenham, owned and driven by Lee Morgan. He spent a lot of time getting this ready, restored it over 2 or 3 years. Came from Holland in a very poor state. These were used again as troop carriers in World War II. Again, you see the door at the back where they alighted, and then again very thin armour, but these were designed to take troops up to the front. Different version now of the half-track. These were made incidentally by White and International. I'm going to try and tell the difference, but they're basically the same. This is an International, I do believe. Now the guns on the top is 450 caliber machine guns, and these are designed for anti-aircraft protection. These would follow the main troops into battle to get cover from aircraft. The sides folded down, and that whole turret rotates through 360 degrees. And when that goes off, those 450 calibers, each one fires 750 rounds a minute. And when they all fire simultaneously, that's 3,000 rounds a minute. So quite capable of bringing a low-flying aircraft down. These were last used in action. There's lots of famous pictures. The bridge at Remagen, when the Allies are advancing across the Rhine into Germany, when the Luftwaffe had their last throw of the dice, trying to stop them crossing the Rhine. These were stationed alongside the river and very successfully shot a lot of German planes down. British vehicle this time, a Scamel, post-war, 1960s type thing with the Gardner 120 diesel. These are based on the wartime design, and I think we got a wartime one to follow later. They are lovingly known as the